Our topic this week is very up to today. We are always on our phones. We're always looking down at our phones. We're always distracted. So you you use this term. You wrote a post, Megan, about what you call the monkey mind and the general concept of awareness. Can you just kind of explain your basic principles?
Yeah, so monkey mind is sort of a Buddhist term for what if you imagine like a monkey jumping from branch to branch, like that's kind of like what our mind does naturally. So, and I just think this is something that everybody is, I mean, we've always had this problem of a monkey mind, but I do think that technology has made it worse. I mean, I noticed for myself that, you know, waiting for a doctor, waiting for waiting for anything, like you actually, like you pull out your phone. It's like you just don't want to be in that sort of. So that's the first thing to sort of look at, like how uncomfortable we are with space, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm thinking about being in therapy where typically you can't pull out your phone. And we as therapists are kind of trained to like be okay with space. I think these concepts are hard for us too, right? Like just being okay with space. But how does it come into the therapy room, this concept as well?
Yeah. Well, I actually have had clients that have the phone like right next to them on the couch, and they're like, it's actually hard for them not to look at it, you know.
Right.
Um, so that's sort of a new intense thing in the last 15, 20 years, right? Um,
Hmm. So what do you think is happening there when somebody like when you're in the doctor's office or when someone's in therapy and they're glancing, like what do you think is actually the experience of that?
Yeah, I think it is our natural tendency to want to fill the space with something. I think we are just uncomfortable with space itself because space itself means unknown. And when we're in the unknown, that's where we experience anxiety because our mind, like we just like to know everything. Like that's the sort of the definition of anxiety, right? Is that anxiety is of the future. You don't know what's going to happen. You're literally trying to figure out how to solve a problem in the future, which you cannot, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think space itself, and I think it's now actually with the phones, I feel like it's just like it's like a body practice too. We just grab our phone. So I think the discomfort comes up and we want to fill it. And I don't think it's really unlike, filling with other substances, when you're uncomfortable, whether it's food, alcohol, drugs, porn, like whatever the thing, however you like to sort of touch ground and find comfort, fill yourself with something, occupy yourself. Um,
So you're saying all those concepts are of the same category, like just however you avoid space.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think so. I think that the hard thing about phones is that we can't avoid them now. So we have to figure out how to work with them. And I guess my whole point in this discussion is bringing awareness to it. And I know you know what I'm talking about here. So, because when you're aware of doing something, then you're not the thing itself. Like if
Mhm.
you're not aware that you're jumping from thing to thing, you're just in this, some part of you is aware. And I think over time you lose a kind of confidence about sort of being with yourself with nothing else going on. I
Mhm.
think I think people do come in feeling quite addicted, right?
Yeah, so the addiction just takes different forms, but it's all about like, are you just comfortable with yourself, with space,
Yeah.
with quiet, right? Yeah, so um if you could maybe explain like what it would I like that we're not saying stop using your phone because like we're all addicted to our phones. I have mine right here. It's like
Yeah,
it's
mine is
just
it's
there. It's
right
like
here.
it's our new secure attachment, right? Like we just have to have it. Or I don't know if I would call it secure, but it's our latest attachment that we're addicted to. So like what would it look like to have that as opposed to just being in the thing, to have greater awareness of it?
Yeah. Yeah. So what does that look like in real life? It's like, I even do it like when I'm reading. So I usually read at night and I'll notice I literally like put down my book to check my phone. And I'm not even looking for anything in particular. Um, and I think people on the ADHD spectrum, of course, this is even more so, right? And so if I can say to myself, oh, I notice that I'm a monkey jumping from branch to branch. Like that in itself, like when you can say, oh, I notice. So you're in a higher place looking down at the situation, right?
Mhm.
I'm I'm noticing that I'm grabbing one thing after another. Like I don't
Mm,
have to solve anything right now. I'm just noticing that.
right.
So that's number one. The second thing is just when you're when you notice you're creating a teensy tiny space, and when you create that teeny tiny space, you actually have some choice,
Right.
right? So if we're not noticing something, we're just like doing it like we're kind of asleep and we're just jumping branch to branch, right?
Hmm.
But if we notice we're creating that small space, and it's like even if it's literally for like 3 seconds,
Right.
you're building some kind of muscle in order to you're building your awareness, which is just key,
Mm,
to understand yourself and just what's going on, right? Like in the therapy room, we're always, what's happening, like what's going on right now,
mm,
right?
mm, mm. Yeah, there's something you're saying, like it's almost like being vulnerable with yourself, It's
Mhm.
like that you're actually sharing with yourself what's going on instead of just doing the thing. And that vulnerability builds up a certain strength, just like being vulnerable with another person builds up a mental strength, right? That there's also like an internal vulnerability that builds up your strength of being able to be with yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I feel like we come back to this so often, is that, we're trying to create like good relationship between the different parts of ourselves. So I guess, let's talk about compassion. Let's bring some compassion in here too. So you notice that you're just jumping from thing to thing and you just looked at your phone a million times today. You create that space. Can you keep it judgment free? Can you bring some compassion, right?
Mhm.
And because once we're judgy about it, we've brought sort of negative energy into it, and we don't ever make change from negative energy. We,
Mhm.
we make change from a place of love and compassion. Like if you can bring compassion to that moment, oh gosh, I wonder if I'm anxious about something, or I wonder
Mhm.
if I could lay on the couch for like, I'm going to set my watch for like 5 minutes and just like lay on the couch and do nothing. This, anything like that, or even just the tiniest awareness really starts to bring in more of a relationship with yourself. And so the last thing I say about it is that you try to make it a practice, and it doesn't make you a better person to have a practice. It just makes you more in relationship with yourself. So we're not talking about like being without a phone sort of person, or meditating for an hour every day. We're just talking about creating better, a
Right.
sense of confidence that you can sort of begin to sit with yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I'm just thinking about like sitting with yourself can be so uncomfortable. Sitting with your own body can be so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There's so much there, as queer people, there's so much there to like slow down
Yeah.
and be with yourself is so scary for so many of us, for probably all of us to some degree.
Yeah.
And so I think like maybe you're just advocating to be very gentle in that process and don't push yourself too hard. Don't use shame as like a tool in this, but like to very gently allow yourself to have even a minute of being present with your experience without grabbing for the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I have studied meditation, and I think it's really important. I want to say to everybody that, you know, being a good meditator is not being able to be without thoughts. It's not like achieving no monkeys in the mind. It's just actually an awareness building practice. So maybe on certain days, like all you're doing is watching the monkey and catching the monkey over and over, and that is the practice, right? Um, so yeah, I really, and I think that it's hard to sit with ourselves because I think emotions come up, and myself included. I mean, my natural inclination without awareness is to avoid what I'm feeling much of the time, right?
Right. That's the if you're not conscious of it, that's the mode that you automatically go into is avoidance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I
I
agree
could
with
just speak for myself there.
No, I agree with that. And I see that with so many clients too, and so many people in my life. It's like our natural state is often one of just like, get me away from discomfort, right? And so, how can you start to build a practice to shift direction towards giving yourself just like a little bit of presence with discomfort?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, thank you.